weighed down by hammy acting, cheap costumes, horrendous CGI, and vomit-inducing cinematography that bungles most of the elements it steals from the original animated movie, abandons its classic ideals of self-sacrifice, heroism, and true love, and injects the lethal dose of the message.
Hi everyone, make sure to check out my live streaming links down below. Also my Patreon where I post more content on there that I don't post here.
Miss, excuse me, I think you dropped something.
Thank you, Market Dweller.
Market Dweller? Today I'm going to be reacting to The Critical Drinker, Snow White. It's even worse than I expected.
Certain fundamental truths about this world which are so universal that anyone, no matter their race, colour or creed, can pretty much agree on them. One, never trust a post-Vindaloo fart. Two,
A post
spreadable
what?
butter isn't. 3, anytime a woman starts a sentence with "a real man would," you know you're about to hear some weapons grade retardation. And to that not so illustrious list, we can add that the Snow White live action remake was, without a doubt, one of the worst ideas in the whole history of entertainment. Possibly the most predictable of all failures, a project conceived for all the wrong reasons, starring all the wrong people, pushing all the wrong messages, and telling the entirely wrong story. After all the delays and the controversies and the speculation that have been swirling around it for what feels like decades now, it was actually kinda weird to finally sit down and just watch this thing. Like meeting a celebrity after following their career for years. Not a good kind of celebrity, more like a Jimmy Savile kind of celebrity. The kind that you're discreetly warned never to get into a lockable room alone with.
Oh.
But here it is, nonetheless, and now that I've finally suffered through nearly 2 hours of Snow White, I can confidently tell you that, yes, this film absolutely lived up to all my worst expectations, and in some cases even exceeded them. A bloated, overstuffed turkey of a production, weighed down by hammy acting, cheap costumes, horrendous CGI, and vomit-inducing cinematography that bungles most of the elements it steals from the original animated movie, abandons its classic ideals of self-sacrifice, heroism, and true love, and injects the lethal dose of the message, which is so redundant and thematically contradictory that it just gets abandoned by the ends.
Redundant and thematically contradictory was really nicely put. He pointed out also cheap costumes. That's something that I haven't seen spoken on as much with people speaking about Snow White. That just seems to really stick out the more you see the new and updated trailers, how cheap everything looks, especially the main costume, the main dress. It just looks so bad. It looks like Party City, Spirit Halloween. I mean, you can look up anything on Google and anybody who's attempted to cosplay Snow White or make an outfit for something on Etsy, they almost every single time look better. Even outside of all of the controversial opinions on the acting or the message, and if people don't like the word woke anymore, because that's also being thrown around too much, you could just look at this movie with the audio off, not really know where it's coming from. And I think generically a lot of people would say, well, I can tell that it looks like it's Snow White, but it doesn't look good. I mean, once nearly 70% of the movie is CGI'd, green screened, not real animals, not real little people, not real environments, then why did you make a live action? You have like 4 actors and everything else around it is fake.
Steals from the original animated movie, abandons its classic ideals of self-sacrifice, heroism, and true love, and injects the lethal dose of the message, which is so redundant and thematically contradictory that it just gets abandoned by the ends. It's also laughably obvious where they've had to reshoot and rewrite big chunks of this movie in response to all the backlash.
Really?
Entire subplots, characters, and setups are introduced and then abandoned without explanation, and the ending is so wildly anticlimactic and jarring that it makes World War Z look like a model of cinematic efficiency. Anyway, let's get the plot summary over with so we can put this turd behind us. The basic setup for Snow White is broadly similar to the original film. Snow White herself is born to the benevolent king and queen of a generic medieval fantasy land that tactfully goes unnamed. Although, fuck me, they must have pretty good transportation links with the rest of the world, because the population here is more ethnically diverse than central London. Anyway, Snow White's mum dies and her dad remarries Gal Gadot, who manipulates him into going off to war, where he promptly disappears and is never seen again. Oh
Wait,
no,
what?
I guess she's gonna have to take control of everything. What a mind. Fast forward a few years and the kingdom's become a kind of dystopian nightmare where everyone's poor and hopeless and ruled over by an iron-fisted tyrant.
Maybe I forgot about that. I haven't seen Snow White since I was little, but convinces him to go off to war as a king. It stands out to me. But again, if that was in the original, just didn't remember. If they changed that part, then if you're gonna stick to something because it's the original story, that makes sense because that's how it happened. But seeing it in a live action and trying to convince people of that seems interesting. There are a lot of similarities between this and Cinderella, but once you change the aspects that make Snow White unique from Cinderella, and you change them into something else, you kind of start noticing a lot of things that just seem like Cinderella, like having an evil stepmother, and the cleaning scenes seem heavily pushed in this, and they weren't really as pushed as in that movie, so kind of just has more of a Cinderella vibe. It's kind of cute that it opens in like a storybook like way. The book looks pretty. The animals don't really look as bad as I thought that they would be, but maybe in longer scenes they look ridiculous.
And ruled over by an iron-fisted tyrant. It's a bit like modern-day Britain, only with better sanitation and dental care. Anyway, after a confrontation with Snow White over a bandit named Jonathan who tried to steal some food from the castle, the evil queen decides the best thing to do is send her out into the forest where the huntsman can conveniently murder her. It's a bit extreme, but I'll let it slide. Naturally, the huntsman has second thoughts and decides to let her go, and after wandering alone for a while, she runs into 7 dwarves that I can only describe as the kind of thing that Cthulhu probably has nightmares about. I'm not kidding, man. The brief glimpses that you got of these things in the trailers are absolutely nothing compared to the existential horror of actually witnessing them on the big screen. These are nightmares made real. Like if you woke up in the middle of the night and saw Mr. Blobby standing at the foot of your bed, silent, motionless, watching you with those blank, lifeless eyes that bore into your very soul. So after crashing at their house for a while, eating their food and helping herself to all of their resources, Snow White helpfully forces them to clean up their own home while she prances around like she's on some mad acid trip. Which she probably is, to be fair. I would be if I was in this fucking movie. Then for some reason she gets it into her head that her dad must still be alive, and the only way to find him is to seek out the bandits that lurk in the forests.
Right.
I mean, that has to be the best part. You're invited into someone's home after you almost died. They feed you, clothe you, let you sleep there, and then you say, wow, gosh. Have you guys ever thought about like cleaning and just living a completely different way than how you normally live? Here's a broom, learn how to use it. Like, what? There's nothing wrong with being, oh, thank you so much for feeding me and saving my life. Let me dust for you as a nice surprise for when you come back from working in the coal mine. Or do they not do that anymore either? Is that like not allowed because that's offensive? I wonder if they still had their musical number.
So naturally, she runs into Jonathan about 5 minutes after leaving the house so that the rest of the plot can happen, and he protects her from the evil queen's soldiers by taking an arrow that was meant for her, so she brings him back to the dwarves to get fixed up. Oh yeah, you know those retarded looking Starbucks baristas from those early set pictures that everyone thought were the dwarves? Well, those are the bandits, who are actually out of work actors forced to become thieves because the evil queen's taxation policies shut down their entire industry. Is that a reference to something? Is that a reference to something?
Is that a reference to something?
No idea. Anyway, Jonathan decides to lure the Queen's soldiers away to give Snow White time to escape, and then immediately gets captured because he's a bumbling idiot. And the evil Queen decides that she's had enough of this shit, frankly one sympathizes, so she turns herself into an old hag and manipulates Snow White into eating a poisoned apple that makes her go a bit dead. But that's okay because Jonathan escapes prison so that the rest of the plot can happen, and gives her the world's least passionate kiss, which brings her back to life so that she can begin her cunning plan to overthrow the Queen and take back her kingdom. Do you want to know what that plan is? Are you ready for the fourth dimensional quantum mega chess that she plays here that would probably give Christopher Nolan a brain hemorrhage? Well, she walks into town and then convinces the soldiers to turn against the evil queen because she can remember their names.
Really?
Because she can remember their names? That's all it takes. That's, wow. Just starting to feel a bit confused. Is that a reference to something? The message. Just make a movie.
Really?
I'm not kidding, that's her plan. So the evil queen gets mad and smashes the magic mirror and then turns into black glass and shatters, and Snow White becomes the new queen, and that's it, they all live happily ever after. Now, there's a lot I want to say about this movie, but first, let us begin with the positives. And as hard as it might be to believe, most of them actually concern Rachel Zegler.
No way.
I'm actually going to pause because I don't want it to sound like I'm ripping off his positives with my positives, even though I haven't seen the movie. So I'll just say one right now. I found out some time ago that she's actually an amazing singer and can even sing, I think, opera. However, the movie decided to make her sing like every other more so modern, kind of sort of recent Disney princess, and kind of just took that away from her. It sounds like she would have been capable of singing not only opera fantasy like, but maybe even old timesy like how Snow White originally sang in the animated movie. So if she has that great of a range, it seems like it was kind of Disney's fumble or whoever decided to do this, where she just sang like every other person. Still has an amazing voice, still probably sang really well, but could have probably pulled off the Snow White authentic style of singing and or maybe of a more opera-y style. And it just seemed like she was directed to go into this kind of basic Frozen Moana tone.
Let us begin with the positives. And as hard as it might be to believe, most of them actually concern Rachel Zegler.
No way.
Now don't get me wrong, she might be an obnoxious arsehole in the real world, but credit where credit's due here, she actually isn't terrible as Snow White.
It's not true. That's impossible.
I mean, her outfit looks like it cost like $100 off Amazon, her haircut makes Anton Chigurh like a cutting-edge trailblazer, her performance is a bit over the top and theatre kid at times, and her American accent comes and goes depending on whether or not she's in a reshoot, but I do get the impression she's at least trying to do her best with the material, and she can absolutely belt out the musical numbers, which is pretty much what you'd expect from a trained vocalist. The same cannot be said for Gal Gadot, however. It genuinely pains me to say this, but I think we all need to come to the acceptance that that girl cannot fucking act. It takes a special kind of charisma, presence, and dramatic range to play a good Disney villain, and well, Gal Gadot doesn't have it. Her delivery somehow manages to be wooden and scenery chewing at the same time, and when she has to deliver a big musical number, you can pinpoint the exact moment where they swap out her voice with someone who can actually sing.
Imagine there's no heaven.
Jonathan is yet another entry into the bumbling, forgettable, non-threatening male sidekick list of modern-day Disney heroes. There's brief moments where it seems like he might be displaying the tiniest bit of attitude and heroism, but then it's immediately squashed to reinforce the idea that men are all just a bit useless. Visually, the film's an inconsistent mess. CGI Cthulhu nightmares aside, the colour scheme ranges from bleak, washed-out grey castles and towns that look like Zack Snyder directed it, to a kind of over-the-top golden yellow piss filter for the CGI woodland scenes that's so excessive it actually makes your eyes start to hurt after a while. It's funny as well because there's like one scene that was filmed on location in a real forest, and the contrast between that and the CGI fantasy version is so jarring, I actually thought the action had shifted to a whole different country. Also, you can absolutely tell this movie's been reshot to fuck. The kiss scene where Jonathan brings Snow White back to life was absolutely added in later to try to appease fans of the original. Snow White herself has clearly been toned down in places to make her less obnoxious, and I'd be willing to bet about 90% of the bandits' screen time has been cut. Most of them don't even get a single line of dialogue, which once again had me questioning, why the fuck are they even in this movie? I think the biggest problem though is the ending. The original movie had the dwarves battle in the evil queen to save Snow White, reinforcing the idea of reciprocal kindness and redemption, but here Snow White has to resolve everything by herself, and the result is that none of the other groups or factions have anything to do. Both the bandits and the dwarves, and even Jonathan, just kind of stand around watching the whole thing play out, and I couldn't help wondering, what is the film even trying to show us here? Snow White as a character seems to be all about equity and shared responsibility. rather than privilege and greedy self-interest, but when it comes to the crunch, she ends up having to do basically everything herself, which negates the very point the movie's been trying to make for the past 2 hours. It's this fundamental inability to understand what it's even trying to say, beyond the crushingly tired princess who saves herself trope that's now become the very cliche it worked so hard to overturn that proves to be the film's real undoing. In short, Snow White is a modern day mess. A film that's basically been a disaster from start to finish, and now that it's finally out there and I've reviewed it, it's something I'm very much looking forward to tossing on the ash heap of history. Do yourself a big old favour, save yourself some time and money, and go watch the original instead.
Weird.
Anyway,
I almost love that
that's
now.
all I've got for today. Go away now.
It's almost, I probably get too excited whenever he gives compliments to somebody that he's been, not in a harsh way, I mean, maybe even rightfully so, criticizing for a long period of time. Because I'm sure that there's a lot of people out there saying, oh, you get to a point where you're just a hater. Like anything that they do, anything that they breathe, you just don't like. No, clearly does give credit where credit's due, sees a performance, and then compliments it. Believe he does the same with Ariana Grande. He's given a lot of, this isn't great, this is awful, this makes you a terrible person, but oh my goodness, can she act? Was this movie carried by, clearly she was extremely passionate for this role and all of that stuff. But yeah, something that reminds me that he had said about how this movie ended up turning out where she just had to do everything herself, it kind of rendered not only the prince, who kind of comes in and saves her because he has to give her a kiss to wake up so she can save herself, but he then just becomes useless. The second he gets an attitude or seems like he's going to be assertive, it just immediately is anticlimactic and he goes back to being just the same trope of having a useless man character in whatever movie or show. Which it's fine that not every male character has to have a use or a point, and it's definitely fine that sometimes women characters are more useful than male characters. But to have it forcefully pushed in such an unbelievable way and in everything all at the same time, it then makes it just feel really forced and unbelievable. So you have to do it in a really natural way, not so forceful, because then it's just annoying and it's cliche. Right back. It's swung too far in that direction. Now you're overdoing it. Kind of like Buzz Lightyear. I mean, we're supposed to believe that that was his favorite toy, his favorite movie growing up, just to watch the movie ourselves and see that Buzz Lightyear is actually, spoiler alert, extremely incapable. I mean, the entire movie shifted and showed you, instead of him being somebody who has bravery and did everything on his own and had like some really powerful solo story, it seemed like they made it about every other character except for him. How he's actually nothing, and the only reason why he has any achievements and accomplished anything is because of all the people that were surrounded by him. And then I guess the message was kind of pushed into, you can count on friends, or sometimes you need to give friends credit. Sometimes you need people to help you, which maybe the message isn't the worst, but the way that you portrayed it is a little forced. But yeah, good video. Probably won't watch it myself. So yeah, but it's interesting to have these conversations and listen to his opinion on it. If you like the video, make sure you go and check out Critical Drinker's channel, because that's obviously where the video comes from. And check out all of my links where I live stream 3 to 4 times a week. And I will see you all next time. Thank you for watching.